Hello and welcome to the Bonus Points Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Garrett, as always being joined by Ollie Guy.
Me lord.
I was wondering how long it would take for you to bring out the voices from this game. I didn't know it was going to be immediately.
Absolutely.
I'm glad you did the nice ones, because I don't know, on the orcs they go like, what? Like, leave me alone, or like, stop touching me, like they're all angry. I'm glad you did the nice ones. Anyway, for those that don't know what Warcraft is, you're probably very confused. But this is us back. Basically, if you are new here, we discuss a game and then we have a little debate to rank it on an overall leaderboard. This episode is my choice, which is Warcraft II, Tides of Darkness. So probably a game that not too many of you know that much about, which is why it's fun, because hopefully you'll learn a little bit about it. We played it for you, so you don't have to, is our motto. Do you want to kind of fill people in a little bit about what Warcraft is, if they don't know?
Okay, so Warcraft II, Tides of Darkness is a fantasy strategy game developed by a little company called Blizzard. You might have heard of them. Well, hopefully not recently.
Well, you would have heard of them. Infamous company.
The game came out in 1995, and then it was re-released in 1996. There was like a DOS version and a Windows version. And it had like a bunch of expansion packs. So like before DLC, you used to have to buy an expansion pack. And they were released up until like 1999. So it was around for quite a long time. And we think it sold around 3 million copies.
we were having a discussion right for the podcast, and I was like, it sold like 7 million copies. And then Ollie was like, oh, I thought it was 3 million. Yeah. And I looked it up and it was like 2 million. So it's somewhere between 2 and 7, probably nearer the beginning of that. So for the time, like mid-90s, like that's a big hit. It's not like some small game of the time. And then obviously it went on to spawn Warcraft 3 and then World of Warcraft, which is I think probably the thing that people only know Warcraft from these days, maybe the film a little bit.
It's crazy though, like Warcraft's influence is like massive. So we had a question in from Cinemog that said, do you see the influence of this game in any particular games that have come after it, other than Warcraft games? So another game people probably know about is StarCraft. StarCraft was based on Warcraft 2. So like, and that's a huge game, like international esport. Dota 2 is built off a Warcraft mod. So like, that's also like this whole thing. And then obviously, World of Warcraft and the film.
Yeah. So probably one of the most profitable like franchises ever, like forgetting video games, like it's got to be right up there, considering that games tend to make more money than films or TV shows or books or whatever anyway, and it's got to be one of the most profitable games. So for those that don't know, World of Warcraft, basically to play it you pay a subscription every month, like you would like a Netflix subscription, and it has a lot of players and has done for like over 10 years. I mean, how long
easily over 10
World of
years,
Warcraft been going on for? So I think the original Warcrafts had what anniversary was that? So that's 1994 was the original Warcraft, I believe.
Sure. But it's close to 30 years if it's
yeah, absolutely. Because I'm pretty sure that's right. Because I remember thinking like, wow, there was a year between these two games. Because before going in to play Warcraft 2, I decided to play Warcraft 1 first. And there's a big leap between Warcraft 1 and 2. So I guess before we get into it, I'll say why I chose this game. So two reasons. One, number one is for just the variety of the channel. We hadn't done a strategy game. We also hadn't really done like a proper PC game. Like a lot of the games we've been playing are on PC. This is a game which is only on PC and is a very PC-styled game. But the main reason is this is my first nostalgia pick. So I've tended to avoid picking games just because of nostalgia, because when we go to have a debate, like Ollie might say, oh, this is bad. And I go, yeah, but I liked it when I was a kid and carefree. And it kind of, it's a bit of it kind of stifles the debate a little bit. But this is a massive nostalgia game, especially the first one. That's the one I played more than the sequel. I chose the sequel, which I did play a lot as well, just for you, mainly because it is a big evolution over the first one. Okay. And I was like, it would be more tolerable to play today because, there's quite a few big differences between the first and second one. So before this, what was your experience with Warcraft in general?
So I used to have Warcraft 3, when it came out. So I was probably pretty young. English terms, year 8, year 9 maybe. And
so what age is that?
I
Is
don't
that
know.
like 14?
Probably about 14,
13,
yeah.
14?
And I used to just play custom maps because I was not very good at it. So
Yeah.
one of the things in Warcraft 3 is you get heroes. So like you'll have a special unit that's like a named guy, and then you can kind of level them up, which is like a bit like Dota or League, which is also another game that's influenced by Warcraft. So people used to make custom maps where like your knight hero would be called like Aragon, and like all the characters would be named after Lord of the Rings. So I used to play stuff like that. But the actual game, I was not very good at it. And that's continued into Warcraft 2.
We'll get to that. You just kind of remind me, Hearthstone is an offshoot. That's in the Warcraft universe as well. Another huge profitable game as well. So it really has spawned a lot. But I think it's a case where what came from Warcraft 1 and 2 has been so successful and influential, it's almost overshadowed where it spawned from. I think that's why there's a lot of people that just don't even know these games exist, which is crazy. Because if you think back to like people that like Mario now, and you think of all the amazing modern Mario games, but everyone knows about like the early Mario games because of like, I don't know, just gaming historians just go back and they spoke about it a lot. But I feel like these games are like so rarely spoken about. Have you got any idea why?
I'd probably say because they have not aged as well as Mario 1. Mario 1 is like 2 buttons and move. That's kind of it. Whereas this game's got like, it's quite complicated. Doesn't have much of a tutorial or really any tutorial at all. And also it's
what about StarCraft though? Why is StarCraft endured? Because the original StarCraft is very playable today and is still played in tournaments today.
Yeah.
Like, do you think it's just, it came out a little bit later and they're just kind of, I don't know, fix some of the issues?
Yeah, like maybe Warcraft 2 is kind of where the multiplayer really hit. So then they kind of got all this, they had Battle.net then as well, so they got all this multiplayer data, and then they used that to make StarCraft, where they probably sounded off the edges.
Yeah.
And now that's the version that everyone plays. Yeah. So I should think that's probably why people don't go back to it so much.
So for people that people watching the video podcast will see some footage on screen and will kind of get an idea. But do you kind of, for people that can't really picture this in their head, do you kind of want to describe what like an average scenario, how it will play out?
So let's just start with the basics. Strategy game, you kind of the overlord of an army and you need to do objectives, but they're usually pretty simple. So the first thing you do in this game is you always start with a little peasant and you kind of need to build. He needs to like build a little town so that you can gather resources like wood and gold and oil so that you can build more things. And then you can build like barracks to make soldiers, and then you can build like a shipyard to build boats. And then, so then you kind of build out this little town and this little army, and then you go and have to wipe everyone else off the map. So there'll be like other little armies dotted around, and then you need to go and wipe them all out. That's
okay.
Kind of,
so what you're describing sounds really fun, but I've already picked up from some of your inflections what you think about the game. Like, where do you think it falls short then, just to kind of get that out of the way?
Don't get me wrong, like I actually really like this game. I thought it was great.
Good.
I thought it was great.
I do. I genuinely do. Like, I was worried with a nostalgia pick whether it was all just rose-tinted glasses.
It's not aged great, and I did look for mods to try and help the things that I think it hasn't aged very well. So some of the things it doesn't do great at getting in the way is like the pathfinding. So like when you select I'll go over here, it's atrocious. Like the characters are like it's like a little gaggle of drunk men like banging into each other, like bouncing off the walls, like walking the wrong way. So like, which sounds like, oh, that's funny, but then when you've got like your best guy and he goes off on his own and just gets taken out within 3 seconds, it's like, oh my God.
But and it's not like you're like, oh, tell this one character to get there and they go an awkward route. You'll have like a group of 4 people and you'll tell them all to go to the same place, and 3 will, and 1 will just go around the other way and then like get confused and then just stop. And so and like, unless you're really watching them, you just won't know why.
So that's quite common and annoying. That is. The other thing is that is not great is that you have to wipe out every single enemy unit in order to move on. So one level, I was so stuck, I looked up a guide to be like, I must be doing something wrong. And it turned out there was one oil rig in the middle of the ocean somewhere that I'd missed and not taken out. So that's why they carried on. Whereas like, I feel like in a modern game, what they probably would have done is once you take out the thing that creates soldiers, then they're done.
Yeah.
Because you can't make any more. Whereas
or when you've destroyed a certain amount, the last few would show up. Because I had a situation where I had the exact same thing. I had to like destroy everything on the level. And I was like, there's nothing here. And I was just looking for ages. And it turned out there was... So basically, when you explore an area, it shows up lit up on the map. And I was like, I've covered the whole map. There's nothing here. And then there's literally one boat. Like, genuinely, I'm sure it's doing it on purpose, hiding in like the little tiny corner, like behind some tree. And I spent ages looking for it. I literally, like, longer looking for this whatever I needed to do to complete the level. And I'd played for so long, I didn't want to restart the whole thing. And I finally found it. And then another time, I had to destroy a certain thing. And I was like, I was destroying everything. I was destroying all the walls in like the town in case that did it. And then I was just like, I don't know what to do. So I just kind of kept cutting down trees and gathering gold, building up my... I just carried out, and then suddenly it popped up victory. And I have no idea what caused the victory. Like I've no idea exactly what I was meant to do or what I did, but suddenly it was like victory. And I was like, okay, if you say.
But yeah, like the game is good. I like it. I mean, like it's held back by the fact that it's aged as it has, but I mean the graphics are fine. Like they don't look that bad. Like the music's good. It's funny. Like, you know, it's a good gameplay loop. It's just those two little things that are quite common. Like I'm talking every single level ends with your soldiers hitting a farm with swords, and it's like, what am I doing? But I mean, it's still laborious. Fun.
But well, as you say, once you've destroyed the barracks or whatever, I think it should be, and I think this is kind of what modern RTS do. Like once you destroy like the town hall,
exactly,
that should be it done. They're out just to save that time, and then and I think we really can't overstate just how bad the AI and how much that affects everything. Like, because it's not even like pathfinding, but like there'll be enemies in the town and they'll be like destroying the building and your soldiers could be standing right by them just like, and you're like, no, like attack. And then if they are attacked, they're attacked back, but it's so inconsistent. Like you feel like you're babysitting like a bunch of people that like have no idea what they're doing.
Your peasants like collecting gold from the mine, and then like the town will be getting like burnt to the ground and they'll still be running back and forth with their bags. It's like, guys, leave!
Dodging between them.
Also, like, if you actually put them to fight, they're pretty good, the peasants. So it's almost like, I wish they would fight. Yeah, because like, because like one of the things is like selecting the unit. Sometimes I would accidentally select a peasant and he'd come with us and I'd be like, he's gone now. But, like, they do all right. Like, they hit pretty hard.
and when they get back home, they got such a story to tell their family at the farm, don't they? Yeah. You won't believe what I did with that knight. Well, I was just one of the guys. I was one of the guys. It was great.
Everyone's like lifting him up. Like,
it's like the Hobbit, and it's like
what, he's like jumping on the bed at the end, or whatever it is.
Oh god, yeah.
And they're like, yay!
But Gandalf's there, like smiling and nodding. Like,
that's me in this situation.
Young peon, you have done well.
Yeah, exactly.
So one thing we didn't mention. So it's in this game, it's like orcs versus humans. There's 2 campaigns. We coincidentally both did the human campaign.
Yeah.
I'm just curious, why did you choose human?
I just assumed that they were the good guys.
But they're the second option on the list, so we both...
Oh, right. Oh, I don't know. I just thought, they sound like the good guys, so I'll pick the humans.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So I was actually watching just some, like, just kind of videos just discussing the game, just in case there's any interesting facts I could glean from them. And several of them said about apparently that the human campaign is better. It's just a bit more varied and interesting. So in Warcraft 1... They were basically the same campaign with a palette swap, slightly different locations, but same objectives and stuff. But, they are different. So it's a pretty lengthy game if you play through both campaigns. Although if you do finish one, when you start the other one, you're going back to having less units available and stuff. So it's probably a bit of a slog at the beginning. But as I was saying, there is a giant job. So I replayed a bunch of Warcraft 1 as well before this, mainly just because I wanted a little nostalgia fix, just hearing the sound effects and seeing it again. And I'm kind of glad I did that because it made me really appreciate some of the things that are in Warcraft 2. So did you play number 1 at all?
I've never even seen it.
Okay, so the graphics are a lot worse considering it's just a 1-year jump. Like the resolution's just way lower. It's way more pixelated. You can only select 4 units at a time, whereas in this game you can select 9. And selecting just 9 is sometimes not enough in this game anyway. And then there's no boats, there's no aerial units, and it's just a more simple experience. Also, when you're building up your town, you need to build paths or like roads to connect all of the buildings together, which was something that I kind of liked in the first game. I see why they cut it, but it kind of made your town feel much more like you're building a little city rather than in this game you're just plonking them all over.
Were they
the place.
We've got this new pathfinding technology that's so good, we don't need you to build paths anymore.
No, it's like, we need you to do roads because we want people to go in a very straight line. That's why they wanted the roads. And yeah, the AI is just as bad in the first one. I wouldn't be surprised if it's just the same AI system. Maybe there's a few tweaks they made, but it's just as broken and it has the same problem. Still really fun. I think if you enjoyed 2, you would enjoy 1.
Yeah.
But it would be hard for you to do it the way round that you did. So there's the campaigns. They have stories. They have little cutscenes at the beginning. Did you enjoy them?
I love them. I feel like they knew how corny it was. Like, they definitely knew that it was so corny.
In mid-90s?
Yeah, but the fact that you're clicking on the guys and they make little jokes, it's like they must know it's cheesy. The voice sounds like someone's like modulated just a regular speaking voice to make it sound all like a voice actor. And
the first game,
the
whole story wasn't scripted. There was no script at all. One of the producers of the game went in the voiceover booth and just improvised the whole story, which is now like the origin story of Warcraft and what everything else is based on, but it was literally just made up on the spot with no script. And then in later releases, they did go back and re-recorded it with voice actors. But that's what started off. But yeah, the production values is much higher in this one. But yeah, there's so much personality, like as you said, with like the art, and then like you kind of keep clicking on people and they'll tell you, if you keep clicking on the boat, they'll be like, "Oh, stop rocking the boat, you're making me seasick," and you do it again and then they throw up. And then there's an Easter egg, I don't know if you know, but in the world there's like just sheep or like random like animals and stuff. Do you know about the Easter egg?
I read about it earlier on when I was looking for something else, but so if you keep clicking on them, they like explode, right, or something.
Yeah. And I like that too, because it's got like, for those that are into like the war side of it and the battle, like it's got all of that, but then it's just quite bright and colourful and silly, which is kind of the tone that I kind of want for a game like that. Like, I'm not going to be taking it super seriously. So.
I didn't really follow the story that much though, because it was a lot of just made up place names, made up people's names, and it was a bit like blah, blah, blah. So I was just like, oh, like it's fine as long as I'm moving forward.
It's just basically a line of text. I mean, I skipped them eventually and just looked at what my actual objective was. Did you play? So I ended up, this became like a podcast game for me. Like, I'd always be either listening to a podcast or I'd have something else on in the background. Did you do that, or did you always kind of have full focus on the game?
Full focus, mate. Always do that. Every piece of media I ever consume, full focus all the time. I don't ever look at my phone. I'm one of those people that has to like, people are like, oh yeah, I watched this show, but I looked at it on the background. I'm like, I can't do that.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't do that. But I mean, I would be full eyes on the game. Yeah. But there's not much sound. Like, I'd have the sound on quietly, but the music. I mean, I just wasn't a huge fan of the music, and it kind of just stays the same the whole level. And I'll be there like getting my little peons to like cut down trees and build farms, and the music's like boom, 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 like we're just building it, and then it doesn't really change when you get into combat. So in the end, I kind of turned it down, and it was nice because I don't know how you played it, but I played it mainly just with the mouse as like kind of a one-handed game, so I could have like a cup of tea in the other hand. Did you get into any of like the where you kind of set shortcuts on your keyboard, or did you get that deep?
Yeah, I did all that. I didn't manage to do the one where you can select certain like hotkey certain units, but like I know like when I've got my peasants selected, like what the button inputs are to like, okay, build a farm, put it here, like I know how to like type all that in, so it just goes like
so did you know if you just right click rather than left click, it just does the obvious option?
I didn't know that, no.
So if you click on like a peon and then like to the gold mine or whatever, and if you right click, they just do, or if you click on a unit to ground their move, or if on an enemy, they just attack. So you really very rarely need to use those items unless you're doing something weird like healing or something.
I see.
But the one thing I did do, although I ended up being too lazy to set it, is you can set like locations on the map as shortcuts. You can say like your base. You didn't just do a little shortcut to get to your base and get around. And I think if you're going to play this like seriously and like do well or do PvP, like you have to use that. You can't ignore that. But it would it would just be like a level of engagement I wasn't looking for the game to be like, one hand going crazy on the shortcuts and the other with the mouse.
If you use the spacebar, it goes to the last 8 things you selected. So if most of them are in your base, you can just tap and then it will zoom back to your base and then.
Okay.
Or you can click on the minimap as well, which is.
Yeah, I generally moved around on the minimap or just kind of
I did put
using the arrows.
The sensitivity all the way down because like the first time I was accidentally hitting the screen, I was like, what?
Yeah. Well, I've got a setting on my mouse which just does it on the mouse. And then every time I go back to Windows, like the mouse would be just like zooming. I'm like, oh yeah, I was playing Warcraft. I need to turn that down. We did try PvP as well, but we couldn't get it to work. I think it is doable today, but it's not like a normal game where you can just play it, and we kind of couldn't get our heads around it. But it looks cool, like, because another thing is you said about doing it in Warcraft 3, but you can create custom scenarios. There's a really good map editor, and it's a map editor that humans can use. You're not typing in anything. It looks like Mario Maker or something. So it's viable. So I did have a little scroll through some of the scenarios, and some of them seem quite cool. The things like Horseshoe Island, and they almost look like little puzzle maps. And so I bet that if you really got into this game, like there is a lot of content today that you could kind of dig in, and there is a slightly active community still creating this stuff, which is kind of nice to see, and a sign that the game has depth. That people are still coming back to it.
I watched a PvP tutorial to kind of learn how to play the game because I wasn't doing very well at the beginning, and I got my stuff together by the end. But basically, my main problem was I wasn't making enough peasants. So I was only having 4 peasants, and then I was like, why do I keep running out? Like, why do my people keep dying? And then by the end of it, I was making teams of 40 soldiers and peasants mixed up. But
I thought you could say 40 peasants.
No. I'm talking probably about 15 peasants and then the rest of them soldiers. But all building my town hall really close to the mine so they can just run back and forth and stuff like that.
Yeah, or you build your lumber mill close to the logs as well. You can do that. Yeah. And then they bring it back to there. Using
the farms as walls. So building farms in a line, because obviously they're like walls, but they give you food. So just build them instead. Yeah, so
that's very smart. So one of the actual cutbacks from the original game, and I don't think it's like a technical thing, I think they did it intentionally, is in the first game you could build walls. Right. So in this game there are walls that the enemies have, which are super powered because there's guard towers that can shoot you from behind them. And in the original game you could make them, and I think maybe they thought that they're too strong. Because, you can imagine doubling up several layers of walls and stuff. So I reckon they intentionally cut them out. Maybe just to kind of speed up PvP or to not make things too overpowered. But I guess lines of farms. I would always think about I don't want to cut down those trees because they kind of are a nice natural wall.
Oh yeah, I'd think that. But then I'd come back after a massive fight and then my entire town would just be completely bare. Where they rinse. But to begin with, I was doing so badly, I was completely emptying 2 or 3 mines a match.
Yeah.
No gold left. I was needing to make that much stuff because I was doing so badly.
That's something worth pointing out is that there is limited resources. There's a certain amount of gold in the mine. There's a certain amount of trees that are growing. So once you kind of realize to make more peasants to gather up the gold, did you kind of get a hand on the difficulty, or did you still find it tough?
I didn't find it tough, but by the end of it, I would always end with 30 soldiers still alive, and I'd be like, I didn't need that many.
Yeah.
So I would spend ages building up this huge army and then basically just throw everything I could at the enemy. But then
did you know you can change the game speed? And it's not even a cheat they kind of say about that. Because that helps for if you are just building up an army, I'd always boost up the game speed.
But then someone would get in your base and it would be just running at 10 times the speed, and that'd be just smashing everything up.
Farm, we're under attack. And
I was just trying to slow it down. I also turned off Fog of War as well because
that's exactly what I was going to say. So Fog of War basically means that you only see on the mini map enemies that are in range of your enemies.
Yeah.
But I turned that off. I turned it off when I was looking for that pesky boat that I couldn't find.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, I'm not going to turn this back on because this makes the game more fun.
Yeah. So it's exactly the same. And I also made one of those little scouting planes. And I would just kind of fly around, set it to patrol.
Little goblin.
Yeah. No, Gnomish adventure.
Oh, is it a Gnomish? Is that what it is?
Yeah.
They're quite cool. They got some fun voice lines as well. These are little scouter planes, which is cool.
I remember the knights having really weird voice lines, but because they had a really deep voice.
Yeah.
They'd be like, for the king.
Yeah. And then like there's the archers who are like, my liege.
Yeah. But just quickly on the voice lines, you were saying that there was like, obviously the story was quite basic. In this game, they're not even called the Alliance and the Horde like they are in modern Warcraft. They're just
I think just humans and orcs. Yeah.
But one of the voice lines, the guy says for the Alliance. So I wonder if all that came from like just that one voice
throwaway
line.
Yeah. There's a good chance it is, maybe. Or maybe they had like some sort of backstory written that it kind of got cut from the game and that voice line kind of ended up still inside. Because I really loved that personality. So when I played this as like a kid, like I played this game like as if they were toys. Like I was so young, like when I played it, like I would imagine them as like characters, and I just love the look of everything, like the look of the boats and the buildings and stuff. Like, you know, when you're speaking to a young kid and they're obsessed with something and they just talk at you about something, they don't want any response. They just want to tell you about the thing they love. For me, it was Warcraft, and that was like, it was Warcraft and Pokemon were my obsessions. And so those early levels I just knew so well. So I don't remember it being difficult, just because I must have played the levels so many times. I knew them so well. Yeah. And I've actually got a prop to show you.
Oh, okay.
To summarize how much I love this game.
Excited for this.
I was so young, I couldn't really properly write yet. Was how young I was, or I probably couldn't.
Was it like properly. A week ago or something?
Yeah. I was very young, I promise. I was like 15. So I wanted to make a book about Warcraft.
Oh my God.
But I had to get my older sister Rachel. Shout out to Rachel, big lover of the bonus points.
Yeah,
she's not, but I'll probably send her this. So Rachel. So I wanted her to do a book for Warcraft, but obviously I was so young, I probably wasn't speaking very clearly.
Okay, yeah.
So she made this Warcraft book for me, and I'll show you it here today. So it says Wolfcraft.
This is crazy. Okay, so audio, it says Wolfcraft, and there's like little people fighting. Joseph Garrett, little people fighting on the letters.
So we'll be on the video podcast. I'll put up clearer images as well of this. But
oh my word!
So you can see the little picture of them working. So it says the people are working and they are ready for baddies. And there's a little thing that says, "Oh, this is the home." And then it says Wolfcraft again at the bottom.
Wolfcraft.
And to be honest, I probably didn't even know to like correct that it was Warcraft or Wolfcraft. But you see, I drew that little picture.
Oh, it's great. It looks great.
The little men working. Final page I'll show you here. So it says, the baddies ran in and something are people, maybe attacked people. Yeah. And then it says, we attacked the baddies, they lost, ran away. So I thought maybe this would just sum up how much I loved this game. I didn't know
you loved it that much.
And this is, and there's plenty other books that I made completely by myself, which are even more embarrassing.
Rachel is now a graphic designer, so I guess.
Yeah, well, and she's actually said to me she had no interest in graphics design until the big Wolfcraft project landed on her desk. So have you got any fan art you want to share?
Actually, no. Unsurprisingly, no, I don't. Did you ever play? Well, we got a question. Sean Arts at. Did you ever play World of Warcraft? I never. But why not?
I don't know. Like, so I was at an age when I was playing that, like I didn't buy games. Like I think Warcraft 2. I think I only had a demo. Just because I didn't, and I think the demo had either different levels or because I had a Mac version had different levels. Yeah. Because there was levels I remember very clearly that weren't in that, and I think I only ever had ice levels. But I had the full game of Warcraft 1, which is the one I played more. But I also remember when Warcraft 3 came out.
Yeah.
I hated it.
Why?
I never played it, but I looked at it. And it was different. I hated the graphics.
Yeah.
I hated that there were like new factions. It wasn't like I loved Warcraft so much. And I saw the new one, and I was like genuinely a little bit angry about it for no reason. Just
you're having a gamer moment.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't going to forums or anything or shouting. I mean, there wasn't really forums so much at the time anyway. But I remember I had no interest at all about playing Warcraft.
That's crazy. Did you ever play the PlayStation version or anything of Warcraft 2?
No, I played on the Mac. So, because I never had, because if you think my games are so limited, so I had never had a home console until the PlayStation 2. So most of my childhood gaming was on the Mac, which is hugely limited. So then when you actually get a game like Warcraft, which was like a good, deep, complex game, like I was like, oh my God, this is a game that I can keep playing rather than some throwaway like Mac ripoff of some other games. Like I played like Mac ripoffs of like Bomberman and stuff, and like all these weird games. But this was like a proper game that I could sink my teeth in and had all these little characters, and like I played with Warcraft like toys.
What a cute Story. I had no idea that you loved Warcraft 2 so much. And Wolfcraft so much. Yeah, I mean, the game is good. Like, it's definitely aged. I assumed there was going to be some sort of 2020 mod that would like kind of sort it out a little bit, but there wasn't. But apart from that, like, it's pretty fun. I should think the new ones probably are better, but I mean,
I'm sure. I'm sure if you want to go back, probably Warcraft 3 is the way to go, despite my my anger towards it. I bet that holds up better, and they have just released it like a reforged version, which I know. I know it launched with some problems. I'm sure it's pretty much fine to play, and if you're coming in new, you know, I'm sure you won't notice the stuff that was different. And there's some really cool stuff. Like there's a lot of levels in it that are like almost like puzzle levels, like levels where you can't build a base, and you're up here and you need to bring this character down here. And there's options, like there's one of those levels that I cheesed. There's a level where you need to bring a certain character somewhere, and you have all of these troops to fight enemies. But I realized that if I just brought loads of boats through, even transporter boats with nothing in them, all the enemies would get distracted. And then because once they start attacking an enemy, they never stop until it's gone. I could sneak another transport boat through, and I just ran them to the end, and just like I didn't really fight anything the whole level. And like I felt like I solved a puzzle, and so like, those levels were quite fun. Yeah,
there's also the one where you start at the top left corner, and you have to. So like you can liberate enemy vehicles and then join your side. Something I didn't know. So, I was saying I was really struggling with that level. It's because I was destroying those cars and then leaving without them. Because I didn't realize they were joining.
Catapults.
Yeah, I didn't realize they were joining my side. So I was like just smashing them to bits and then trying to take on a whole base with like 6 peons, like an archer. Yeah. But yeah, it's just like, I don't know. It's fun. And also like the story in between is not all that, but like you're kind of making your own stories through playing. So.
Yeah, exactly. And I think as you can imagine, as a child, like the way like I just love the look of the character. Like I'll draw just pictures of like the orcs and stuff, and like I just loved. I don't know, just look at the little pictures like they're in the corner of the screen when you click on them. Like I was just obsessed with all of that stuff. Yeah, and there are some cool bits. Like there's a level. I mean, there's a few, but there's one. The first one stood out where you realize you're fighting against 3 different factions of orcs. Yeah. And I kind of wish that they fought each other as well would be a cool twist. And maybe that's why they added like different factions in later games. But like that's cool because you're like, I could have defeat 3 separate ones, and it seems overwhelming. But then you take over one, and then you kind of take over their base and like their gold mine and stuff, and you kind of power creep. And in the end, you're like, "Oh, I'm as powerful as 3 of them." It was actually a really cool level, but it's very overwhelming at the beginning.
I did find that every enemy tactic though was just send 4 orcs at your base until you kill them. Like, that's all they ever did. Is like you'd be building it, and like 4 guys would turn up, and my knights would just crush them like instantly. They'd be like, "We're under attack," or whatever. Like, you just kill them, and then it's like just waiting for you to build up this huge army. And like, all I was doing was building up the biggest army I could of random units, and then sending them. And it was only in the last level I did where I was like, "Oh, hang on, if I use like archers to take out things that are far away, then they won't get hit." It was only the last level I did where I was like, "Oh, I could actually think about this other than just sending the biggest group over I could."
I also think the thing where they just send 1 or 2 over, which seems obviously dumb for them. I think it's to one, stop you just focusing on making like woodcutters and stuff. Like at the beginning, you have to have a bit of a defense like early on, and then also just when you are building up your army, just so you have something to do. Like otherwise, it is kind of just waiting. It means it's reminding you where they are, and then it's always quite fun when because the whole map's filled in at the beginning. It's always quite fun when you're kind of creeping out further and further, and you're like, "Oh, where's their base?" And then you get a glimpse of a bit of their base. You're like, "Oh no, they've got a blacksmith. That means they're probably gonna have this." And like it's like, "Oh god, like they've got 3 towers behind this wall. Like, and I think that probably is why this game, more so than other RTSs, is kind of talked about more in terms of the single player rather than multiplayer, because I think that works very well in single player, whereas in StarCraft it is much more like, right, this is the level, it's always the same, like you kind of, it's much more fair and balanced and, often symmetrical, and it's kind of, what's your strategy this round, rather than like, oh, I wonder where they are. Like it's a very different type of strategy.
That whole thing you just said about the blacksmith, though, like I feel like the game really could have used some sort of progression tree, so like one of the things I struggled for ages was like making a transport. Like I knew I had to make one because I saw it in the objective, but then I was like, well, I don't know how to make it, and you can't see the different things that you need to make that. Like it's not always as obvious as you'd think. Or I suddenly got rangers, like archer upgraded, and I was like, I don't even know what I did to get them. Like I made them, but I was like, I have no idea where they came from. And luckily online I found a list of like what you need. They call them dependencies, so like what you need to make. But have you ever seen the official strategy guide for this game?
No.
It is completely bonkers. It's written in first person as a soldier.
Oh, really?
So one level that I got stuck on because I was like, I must be doing something wrong. It was the one with the oil rig was the last thing left. It was like, first we built 4 towers in the northeast of the area. Like stuff like that's how it's written. And I was just trying to find it just before we started so I could read it out, but I couldn't find it again. But yeah, the official strategy game is written like a storybook.
I bet that's quite cool, but when you're actually trying to use it for strategy, quite annoying. When you're
well, that's where I found out actually. When I checked it again, it was like, we liberated the catapults, and I was like, what? You can do that? Like, I didn't realize you could actually do that.
Yeah, because you break the wall, but you got to actually step in the little area,
and it plays like a horn.
And then they'll join
but I
you.
thought that the first time that played, there was a Zeppelin. So I thought that was the Zeppelin going like, oh, they're here, like blowing the horn.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But I didn't actually lose any games. I did corner myself once and have to restart because I ran out of resources. Yeah. But I didn't actually lose anything.
I restarted, or like I'd run out of gold in the gold mine, and I'd be like, oh, I don't think there's a way for me to do this now. I'll start again and be more efficient.
Oh god, we're kind of jumping around all over the place. But also another thing that's aged really badly is you can only build one thing in each building at once.
You can build more. I think the idea is you have several barracks.
I know, and that's so annoying.
Yeah, I guess it is quite
like in
slow.
the newer strategy games, you can build 9, and like they come out one at a time. But at least it's building 9. I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching a video earlier and they're talking about it, and they were basically saying that Warcraft II was essentially like the 4th like proper RTS games. There's like weird arguments where this kind of could be, but in terms of what we think of as a modern RTS game, it's basically like the 4th attempt, because there was like Dune 2, then obviously Warcraft 1, and then I think there was a Command and Conqueror came out before Warcraft 2. But this is like the spawn of a new genre. Yeah. And I think that they got so much right, like so early on. It was very impressive.
I was looking for that information because I wondered if like they were the ones that came up with the like gold, lumber, oil, like resource collecting. Like I didn't know if that was, I was trying to find out its legacy.
No, I think there was like, it's like Tiberian, whatever it's called in Command and Conqueror, the stuff that they gather. So I think that, and I'm assuming spice in Dune. I never played Dune, but I'm assuming you're gathering spice at some point, I guess, just because it's Dune. But I mean, I think all of them kind of have some sort of resource gathering. So I don't think they started that, but I think the system works quite well. I think it's quite well balanced, and then you got your boats to go out and get oil. We haven't really spoke about the boats much, so that's something that's kind of unique to Warcraft 2. Wasn't in the first one, then they got rid of it. It wasn't in Warcraft 3 either. Did you enjoy the boat combat?
Yeah, I mean, as much as the standard combat, it was fine. Like getting oil was fine, no problems. It's fun, making these huge ships. Also, the fact that your ship always seems to have an advantage in every naval battle. Like every time I'd come across an orc destroyer or whatever they're called, we'd have a one-on-one and I'd always win. I'd always leave with like a shred of health, but I would always win.
Had you upgraded your cannons and stuff?
I did towards the end, but I think it's just because I took the first shot So then they would shoot, then I would shoot, and then
they're
I would
very
win.
slow, aren't they? Yeah. I think because the boats are all a bit slower, they're probably a bit easier to manipulate.
Yeah.
I do know what some people do is when they get into combat to kind of get around the bad AI is they put the game speed right down, so they can literally be like, you there, you there, you know, basically one at a time. Like, no, archers at the back, archers. You're like to like organize, because that's really what you need to do, because the AI is so painful. And I think that is one of the big issues, is sometimes it feels a little bit like luck for the victories, because it's sort of like, you know, I'm sure you could have gone to that level and had all your little macros and kind of organized, you know, but for the average player, it's sort of like, oh, how is the AI going to react to this situation? If I quickly need a group to go here, are they going to be able to work it out, or are they just going to like run off somewhere and not do what I want them to do?
One thing I had was I made a group of 12 archers. And, 8 archers. And then I was like, okay, so just, there's the enemy base. This is quite early on when I was playing. And they had like a tower or something. And I was like, okay, just shoot the tower from here. And then I'm going to go back to my base and build some soldiers. And then I'll come back in a minute. And then I went back to my base. And then when I came back, they'd walked into a choke point. So there was only one could be at the front. And then a orc grunt killed all of them one by one as they just stepped forward, and he was just killing them. And I was like, it took me like an hour to make you guys. Like, I can't believe you've done that. That was the one that I restarted, I think. That I was like, I can't.
Yeah.
So there's stuff like that happens, you know, but like, I guess it's the way I was playing when I had so many soldiers and stuff. Like, it is funny because you have so many. But I could see it being in PvP quite annoying. But like the PvP is so deep. Like so I watched a tutorial on it, and they were saying like, okay, so when you build 10 soldiers, like this is the order around the base that they spawn in, like stuff like that. Like they know everything, and they have all like their own terminology, and like they call it playing SimCity when someone's building their base and then they get attacked, so they don't realize that. Like they have like their own lingo and stuff. It's like, I don't know. And also that video wasn't even old.
See, like a modern day StarCraft player. Like, and them on the key, because you think of it as a mouse-based game, but like they're literally, it's like, you know, it's like how many button presses can you do per second is how good you are. Like the way you got to manage, especially when it's like you're doing like a battle, you're pushing their base, but you don't want to ignore your own base because you might be making new units, and you want to make, if you're building stuff, and you've got to be switching back in between the two. Like I can imagine it being really satisfying when you get to the level where you can do that. But you know, realistically, we have 2 weeks to play each of these games. I knew the struggle to get there wouldn't be as fun as me just playing the way that I wanted to play. I didn't commit to learning it. You know, I knew as much as I loved this game, you know, I wasn't going to carry on playing it after the podcast. So I kind of was happy with my basic level of, you know, holding shift or like double clicking a unit to select all of that type. You know, those sort of things I could do, which was enough for me to get past, you know, to get past the levels I needed to.
Yeah, I am intrigued now by strategy games, because this is like the first one I've played in 15 years or something. So, because I've always just been like, oh, I'm rubbish at them. I'm not going to bother.
Did you play Command and Conquer or any of the other ones?
I played Command and Conquer Generals a bit.
Okay.
Because of our friend James used to play them, so I was like, oh yeah, I'll get into it with you, but I was not very good at it. Basically, my main problem was always that my base would get destroyed while my army was away. And now I've realised that you can make knights and make them just stand until your towers are ready, which is what I did this time round.
So was that PvP you played?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Yeah, I wonder if we should find one and both try one, like try a modern one and see see whether we'd enjoy it. Because I loved it. I mean, you know that my favourite type of PvP games are 1v1. I love tactical 1v1 games. That I often end up playing like tactical 1v1 shooters because they're, you know, and I know you obviously like fighting games which are 1v1, so I feel like there's a chance that I would actually really get into one, but I just am so intimidated to pick one up and like start searching online against people.
Well, you know, StarCraft 2 is free.
Oh really?
Yeah. So I think it's free. I think the multiplayer cost or something like that, but the single player is free, so you could give it a go.
Yeah, well, it'd probably be on Game Pass, not in the not too distant future, true, I guess.
True.
Good old Game Pass, the unofficial sponsor of the podcast.
Yeah. Also,
saved us a lot of money.
I heard really good things about Supreme Commander. That's meant to be pretty good. But like, I mean, this is two people talking about something we just don't have any idea about. So, you know.
Yeah, no, we're newbies, and I feel like it's I feel like it's a genre of game that was so popular when it was because of it came at a time where games were so basic. You know, they were mainly kind of either, you know, platformer games or very simple single screen games. And I think it gave a level of depth and complexity, which made it really popular. And I think there's a few genres like that. Point and click adventure games, I think, were able to do story better than any games at the time because of what they were. They did one thing very specifically well. And now we can have a modern game, which is, maybe it's in first person and it has amazing graphics and it has all the bells and whistles, but is also deep and tactical.
Yeah.
But back with how limited technology was at the time, it was one or the other. And I think that's why, the genre is still going, but it's not the juggernaut that it used to be.
It's also splintered now because you have like XCOM, which is very different to this, but it's still a strategy game.
Yeah.
You have like Final Fantasy Tactics, which is like triangle strategy. And you have, Fire Emblem Advance Wars, which is again another different thing, but like all strategy
and
games.
MOBAs as well, as you said about, which are very, very close. They're basically like this, but you control one unit, essentially, is what they are, aren't they?
I did try and get into Dota 2 when I was at uni. I played 24 hours and I was like, nah, I'm good.
You played 24 hours? That's a big
I like
to
commit.
Attempt.
When I don't like something, I like to know that I don't like it. I don't want people to be like, oh, you didn't do it properly. Absolutely not a reference to anything we've talked about recently, but like accidentally a reference to it. But like, so I gave it a proper go because I think so many people love it. It must be good, So yeah. But no, 24 hours. Also, the same with all the Monster Hunters. I played 24 hours of each until the latest one, which I absolutely loved. I played 24 hours of all of them and then left. So
yeah. So there's certain games that I'm like, I don't. So say if I play World of Warcraft, I can't win. Either I don't like the game and I wasted my time, or I do like the game and I'm going to waste even more of my time because they're games that I feel like they're very hard to play super lightly, and if I did get really into it, it would just take up too much of my time. And I'm someone who loves playing loads of little games.
Yeah.
My favorite thing is a random indie darling that pops up and that I really get into, and I like playing loads of games, smaller games.
Have you got any games that you've stayed away from because you're so scared of what might happen?
Yeah, I mean, I think MOBAs is one. I mean, I had a mate who was really into League of Legends, and I played it around his, and I was like, you know what? I don't know if I'd like it yet. I've not played it enough. Yeah. I mean, as I said, World of Warcraft. I don't know. Can you think of any for you?
I've got quite a few that I'm like, I just can't. I don't even want to see a screenshot of it because I know it will take over my life. Final Fantasy 14 is one that I won't even install it because it's so far up my alley that I'm terrified of it. Shovel Knight. I've never played Shovel Knight, and there's about 9 of them, and they're exactly the sort of game that I would play. And more recently, Loop Hero. Yeah, everyone says it's really addictive, and I'm like, I can't even install it on anything because that will just take over.
So I've noticed they're all progression games where you're leveling up, getting loot, and kind of almost not endless progression, but constant. Which they all tend to be the games that people constantly, people always say get addicted to. I don't know if we should throw get obsessed with, I guess maybe would be a better term. And one of the things I do like about Warcraft, to kind of bring it back, is that you get that satisfaction of progression, but it will be for 40 minutes, and then you get to start again. But it's always fun that first when it's yes, and I can make a lumber mill, and now I can upgrade the arrows, and that is fun. But then then it stops, and they don't need to have, now you got arrows +4, now +5, +6. I think it's just enough progression to get that satisfaction without it being I'm spending ages looking at screens comparing stats and stuff. It's a nice condensed version of an RPG basically.
And it's I was watching Bryony last night play 2 Point Hospital. Yeah, and that's actually quite similar because you make your first hospital, and as soon as it gets to 1 star, it will move you on. Yeah, and it'll be
you can choose to carry on.
Yeah, exactly.
Or you can, because I played that as well.
And when I was watching, I was like, that's actually a really good idea. Maybe I would like this game.
Yeah.
Basically, it used to be anything isometric. I was like, I'm not going to like this game. I can just tell, but maybe not.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm true. I mean, I shy away. I mean, I was saying recently, I know we're super getting off topic, but that's what we're good at. I was saying I've been playing Weird West recently, and I stopped playing it because of the camera. Because it's a stealth game, and I kind of want to see ahead on. And this is nothing. The game apparently is amazing, and maybe if I played it more, I would get into it. But I just got frustrated when I'm trying to see ahead, and I'd bring the camera down as much as I can, but it would always be quite overhead, and I felt like I'm just like, oh, but the person could obviously see exactly what's happening, but I just can't because of the view, or you have to really zoom out, and then it's kind of too hard to like control your character and you're zooming in and out. And I'm sure eventually I'd have got used to it, but it frustrated me enough that I jumped ship to another game that I was tempted to play as well.
Yeah, I had the same thing with The Ascent.
I don't think I know that.
It's really new, Game Pass game.
Oh, is that like a cyberpunk-y type thing?
Cyberpunk isometric shooter, really. But it's like the view makes it quite hard to aim, and then it'd be like, oh, you got a cool new cybernetic jacket, and then you'd be looking at your character like, did I? Like, because he's like tiny on the screen.
Sure, I'll take your word.
Yeah, so it's just, I don't know. Especially because the game graphics are really good in that, and there's scenes like when you get in a train, it goes into like first person. And it is like, oh my gosh, this looks amazing. I wish the whole game looked like this.
I remember demos of that when like the Series X was first coming out.
Yeah.
I do wish so. I mean, obviously a game like this only really works from an overview. And so for this type, it didn't annoy me at all. I do wish you could zoom out a little bit more.
Same,
and obviously,
same.
It's a technical limitation. And with modern ones now, there's like some games where you can zoom right into the units and see them close. Then you can just use the scroll wheel and zoom out to like super overhead. Like that's where technology's come. And obviously that, I'm sure the developers would have loved to have that too. So it's not even really a critique. It's just sort of the time. But that is one thing. Like if you look at like how many, like it's probably like 10 farms thick you can have each screen. It is a box that you're looking at it all through, because a lot of it's taken up by the UI as well.
And that also means when you scroll, because it's all box based, it's not like a smooth scroll.
It's like a jerk. You're moving a tile at a time.
But have you seen the Gears of War Tactics game?
I've seen footage of it. I've not played it.
The graphics of that, when they zoom in, it looks as good as a Gears game.
It's crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy. Man.
I remember even the Halo Wars games, even the one back on the original on 360.
Wars. I forgot.
I remember I know, another one. Like you could zoom in to like say you'd do like a marine camp with a or a barracks, whatever they call it, and you see like you zoom
barracks.
You zoom what
marine camp.
I don't know if it's called a barrack. It might be called a training ground or something.
All right.
I don't. Yeah. But if you zoom like right in, you can see the little people, and they're like doing press ups and like stuff like that. And that game had a really good sense of like atmosphere, because one of the things is a lot of the buildings they're quite flat, kind of. Back to kind of what you said with Undertale with some of the characters, it would be nice if there was a little bit more flags waving or a tiny bit of motion. Things like when the characters go in the gold mine and they light up, there are a few little touches like that which go a long way. A bit more, and also, that would be great.
Clicking on them gives you a little sound effect. So you click on the blacksmith and you're about to hear him hitting
like ding, ding, ding. Yeah.
But so like on the sound, like something I was going to bring up, but then I was like, well, Joe's going to say, wow, it's a really old game, so you don't get that. But you did almost say it. It's like, I wish the music was like context sensitive.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That's one of the big reasons. So I turned the music way down and then with a podcast, because it annoyed me. I think the music's fine. I don't think it's very good. Like it's not. I wouldn't say it's bad, but the fact that like in any game now, once like combat starts, the music would ramp up, and it wasn't the music was fine in battles. It was the intense music when, as I say, I'm just making 25 knights and it's just the music's just as intense throughout all of them. It did end up annoying me. I feel like it needs to be more subtle or context sensitive.
Well, yes, we got a question from Glon Tito that said, how do you guys like the music? I personally like the music as it added to the tension, and it has some really cool tracks, and it does, but there's only 3 of them. Yeah, and what I want would be like, imagine how so sick this would be, right? Imagine as you set off to march to war, it just plays like a marching drum over the top of the music. How cool would that be? I was gonna be like, that'd be so great.
Or if you're like over like the sea, it like plays more like horns or something, like that would be cool.
That'd be great. But then I seem to remember actually the Monkey Island devs were saying that, so they had different music tracks, like the same song but different ambient like instruments or sound fonts, whatever they want to call it, depending on where you are. And they remember them saying that one of the hardest things was like when you change rooms, the music would carry on from the same place but change instruments or whatever. So maybe Warcraft, they'd be like, it's too difficult to do, but it would have been
great. Maybe there's just the hardware was so limited, like there's so much memory because you can have so many characters on screen, and they were probably like it was before like separate. They had like the CPU and the GPU. Like a lot of it was like they had shared memory.
Yeah.
So it would be like, oh, we can have like another character on screen or more music. It wasn't, they weren't separate so much back in the day.
Did you get the voice line referencing the fact that you used to have a sound card?
No.
He's like,
who'd you click on for that?
He's like, your sound card's working perfectly.
So
I heard it in a video. I didn't actually see it, but like it's funny.
You could actually in the game just upload any like WAV file and just add your own voice to them, and so like in game, like you could just have it so like you're like, it's me in the game, or like or something more witty than that.
Right, I think that's. Oh, actually, no. Before we move on, we got quite a nice comment. Sean the Draconian, who commented in the last video as well. This is quite sweet. Said, my pops, aka my grandma's husband, would have loved this. May his nerdy soul rest happily.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are going to have nice memories of these sorts of games when they're younger.
Yeah.
I used to have a CRT monitor that was like that. Like, I can't even do it. It's just so wide. Like,
well, but make sure, I was going to say, this is the front to back, not the screen size, just to be clear.
Yeah, back in those days. We used to have a PC set up underneath our stairs that
really?
we used to use to play. I used to play Command & Conquer Red Alert on that, but I didn't know what I was so young. I didn't know what I was doing.
Yeah, I played one of them, but it would have been a demo, which is what most of my games were, and I've no idea which one. I'm sure I'd recognise it and have nostalgia for it. But
can't believe you had such hardship growing up.
Yeah, no, God, I never asked for one. Do you know? I never considered that we could have one. That was like a thing that other people are like. I never considered that. Oh my God, there could be one in our house and we have access to it all the time. So it's not like I was nagging my parents and they kept saying no.
Yeah, it
was. I just never considered that would be a thing that we would have. It felt too special.
So how did you end up with a PS2 then?
I don't know. I was just playing one around my mates. And what we were playing, the thing that made me think, oh, I need a PlayStation 2 was Time Splitters 1. There's a level where, like a duck hunt level, where you got to go around shooting like these big ducks. Mm-hmm. And I played it around my mates so much. I was like, well, I need to be able to play this at home as well. This is too good for it just to be a thing when I'm around. But it was my neighbour's house. I could play it a lot. But I was like, no, that's too far to go to play the duck level in Time Splitters 1. Like, I need one. And so I ended up I asked for one and my parents got me one. I should have asked ages ago.
Yeah. If you weren't allowed around your neighbours, you used to press your face against the glass of his window and pretend that you were in there shooting ducks with him.
Well, I was very lucky because I had a lot of friends walking distance that had every console basically. So I played all of these games, but I think maybe it kind of influenced my love for gaming as it always felt like a special thing because it was always limited time. It was always like I didn't have access to it all the time. So I played loads of games and I love games. I just never had them at home apart from Mac games. And then eventually a Game Boy, was the only like retro console I had.
My dad was really into games, so we had every console when it came out. But then I remember when I got my PS2, so I went to have a birthday party, and then when I came back, my mum was like, Oliver, come to your room now. And I went upstairs. She was like, talk to me about that mess in the corner. And I looked in the corner, there's a PS2 there, and I was like, oh my gosh! I was so excited.
That's so good. Do you know what? I did I don't know if I told you this story. Did I tell you what I did with Kai when we got a PS5?
No. Well, you did, but tell it again.
I might jog your memory with it. So we'd been both trying. It's so hard to get a PS5.
I know.
We both wanted one. But I managed to get one and got one ordered, but I didn't mention it. And then we have a cat with a litter tray, and then I suddenly went like. Like I shout out their name and say like, oh no, like quick, come and look at Ori's litter tray. Like, so they've been running down thinking, oh no, we've got to clean up cat sick or there's something horrible there. That they go in there and there's just like a PS5 and a game and a controller just fold up and it's like,
great.
They're like, what? Like their face. Yeah. And then the day all the work was cancelled. That became PS5 day, which was mainly spent updating the PS5.
I wish I could have. Wish I could have a PS5 day.
You will.
My friend say do you know what? No, we're too far off topic. I'm not even going to go into it. Let's go on the list. Yeah,
so let's list it. This is going to turn out to be one of the longer podcasts, but the least time spent talking about the game that's in question. Okay, we have the list up. This is going to be the 14th game on the list. Before we put it on, Is there? Do you want to say anything about last episode's game? Do you want to talk about Undertale at all, or are we done?
All I'm going to say is, Joe, how much of Warcraft 2 did you play?
I played the majority of one of the 2 campaigns.
So you didn't even see the credits?
Didn't even see.
Okay, that's interesting. That's it. That's all I'm going to say.
No, but I just want to say, because obviously with Undertale, there was, I wouldn't say there's controversy, but we got a few comments, and we kind of expected it. We kind of even discussed about it in that episode about, the idea of, because we didn't see all of the different endings, or because Ollie didn't get the pacifist ending, is almost like we weren't we hadn't seen enough of the game to like judge it. And I actually thought of a really good analogy for how to put it. So,
okay, well, I mean, as long as this is coming from you, because I don't want people to think that I'm like upset about it. Like, I don't mind.
No, I think this analogy is so good. Everyone has every right to their own opinion.
Yeah, go on.
I think it'll work. So imagine you're like a food critic, and you go to a restaurant, and you're there for like the evening to eat a meal and like judge the restaurant, and you go there, you order your food and eat it, then you leave. And then everyone starts saying like, maybe you don't enjoy, you enjoy the meal, but it's not like the most amazing meal you've ever had. But then loads of people come up to you and say like, oh, but you didn't you ordered the wrong thing.
Yeah.
But then not even you've ordered the wrong thing, you didn't order the secret thing. There's if you peeled back a bit of the menu, there's a secret thing that you should have ordered. But like, you only went there once to review that, that evening. You're reviewing another meal, restaurant the next evening. So it's not like you can just keep going back and ordering everything and finding every meal. I feel like that's maybe a good analogy
but also,
to kind of put it.
Like, let's look at this list of games that we have here. So Forgotten City, that has 5 endings? We both saw 1 and then stopped. Disco Elysium has 5 endings. We both saw 1 and then stopped. But I don't think anyone's going to be commenting on this saying, I can't believe you didn't see the ending of the Orc campaign. But
yeah, I guess because Undertale, so much of the game is about multiple endings, I guess maybe it's a bigger part of the game. And we do appreciate, I'm sure, there is amazing content there that we didn't see. And if we did see it, it might have ended up higher on the list. But the reality of that, we both have full-time jobs and we're doing one of these podcasts every 2 weeks. Like, we just don't have the time. We time to finish the game right before we do the podcast, so it's fresh in our minds. Like, we couldn't go through and play the game again. And if the game doesn't present itself to us that's kind of required, or even heavily push us or motivate us to do that, we can only kind of judge it from what we experience, which is kind of what we did.
Yeah, because we got a comment and was like, oh, maybe the game wasn't explicit enough that you had to, because you don't actually play the whole thing again. I found out afterwards, you start from near the end. So I had a look at what the ending was that I got, and the ending that I got was the flower said, maybe try not to kill anyone next time, and that was it. And I was like, okay, well, I'm starting again then. That's because that's what he said. So I was just like, I turned it off, and then we recorded. So that close. So, but yeah, anyway.
Yeah. So I feel like that is kind of that is a critique of the game, that it doesn't people don't have endless time, and every time you put towards one game is one you could have had at another game. And if you think you're going to have to go and repeat 70% of the same content you just played through, you might not choose to do it if that's what you think that's going to happen. But
and it's going to take longer. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, so that's in the past. Today we're talking about Warcraft 2. So you said you kind of got an idea of where you think you would like it to go.
Yeah, so I like this game a lot. I think back in the day, it probably absolutely banged. It's aged quite badly now, though. But in terms of the enjoyment that I had out of it and looking forward to playing it, I would put it between Undertale and Ratchet and Clank.
Okay.
So I don't think it's deserving enough to be Disco Elysium Prey level. Maybe if I had nostalgia for it, but it's a fun game and the AI is a bit wonky, but actually it's quite kind of funny. It's a lot of fun. I really enjoyed. I'd sit there and play it for 4 hours at a time, which I don't really even do with games I like. So
yeah, no, I'm so excited by that, because from when you were messaging me, you were kind of, we don't talk much about the game, but you said that you were struggling, and you were kind of asking for just a few little tips about how do you do a shipyard and stuff. Oh yeah, I did mention this, but something that made me quite laugh is because they come up, random hints kind of pop up when you start a mission.
They're so good, yeah.
But some of them, I had one because I had to remember how to do a shipyard and stuff, and then several levels after I'd already had loads of naval campaigns, it pops up saying, to make a shipyard, you need to place it on the edge. I was like, what? They're not tied to the level at all. It's why tell me now? I wouldn't have reached here without doing
Did you not scroll through the tips?
Yeah, but they feel like they're kind of a bit random.
There's ones that are like, when you walk alone at night, make sure you wear something bright.
Oh, really? Oh, I didn't
like
get to any joke
ones like that. Yeah, like, make sure you pick up after your dog.
That's so good.
I was like, tell your friends to buy Warcraft 2 Battle.net edition.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's higher than I would put it.
Really?
Yeah, like even because I'm really trying to take nostalgia out of it, and I'm trying to base it on the experience I had over the last 2 weeks. And I think the fact that the AI is so awful and so crucial to the game really knocks it down. If it had competent AI, I think it would be much higher for me. I mean, I don't think I could put it above Halo. So Halo's at number 9. As it's placed now, it would be number 7. I think I'd put it at number 10. So that which would be under Halo Infinite, one above Max Payne 3.
What about between Forgotten City and Halo Infinite?
It's always got to be above Halo, doesn't it, for you? That's always the best. It's always got to be above Halo.
Well, I mean, if we did that, then it would just be your choice.
Yeah, that's all right. You didn't fight for it to stick because you had it much higher. You didn't fight for it at all. Were you kind of putting it up that high, thinking that I would? Like, why were you so quick to?
No, I just think it's just good. Like, it's great, but like, I'm not, because it has aged. It's not something I'd recommend people play now if the third one's out. But
I mean, you probably would recommend people to play Ratchet and Clank, which you put it above. So why did you have more fun with Warcraft 2 than Ratchet and Clank?
Yeah, like also, I think I did because I was also learning how to play a strategy game, which is something that I don't know anything about. And I was like, yeah, this is great. Like, I actually am succeeding at something I've never done before. And like, it puts up just the right amount of fight to make it feel like you're some sort of war general, which I'm not. Yeah, like the whole building the town, like it's funny. It's like, it looks nice. Like, I genuinely was like, we just had a Saturday in the UK, right? That was blisteringly hot. And all my mates went to the beach, and I sat in here and played Warcraft. So,
because I wasn't invited.
Because I simply was not invited. I just loved it. I was like, this is
because
great.
Every time you pick up the phone, you do the little peon voices. What is it?
Job done. I tell you what, though, that orc mage noise. Oh, the one that's like this guttural screaming, and it just repeats, and it's like.
There's one, I can't remember if it's in Warcraft 1 or 2. I can't remember actually hearing it while playing it now, but I remember it from my past where it's like, Noruba Kadaratu. And it's every time you click on like one of like the buildings, it's like a temple or something, it's like, Noruba Kadaratu.
Great. Yeah, I'm happy with where it is. Like, yeah, it's not as good as Undertale. I kind of had more fun with it than Ratchet and Clank.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's so hard because I had so much joy just looking at, like, just when the menu loaded up and I saw like the little finger, the little cursor and stuff, like that just gave me so many like happy feelings.
It has character,
Yeah, no, it does. But I'm just thinking of like the fun that I had playing it, like compared to like Ratchet and Clank and the Forgotten City. I just feel like. I don't know how much weight can I put on like nostalgia and legacy?
I mean, I've put it where I've put it, so it's basically.
Yeah, it's hard because I think I prefer the Forgotten City over on Ratchet and Clank. So it
That's
feels
why
weird.
I'm fine. Yeah, it's weird because they're not in the order I'd put them in. So.
Wait, would you put the Forgotten City over Ratchet and Clank?
No, but I mean, it's in general. Like, it's not in the order I'd put it in. So
but would you put the Forgotten City over Ratchet and Clank? So these are 7 and 8 at the moment.
Yeah, I think I would. Yeah.
Okay, do that.
Okay.
do that first, and then I reckon put Warcraft 2 as the new 8 under the Forgotten City above Ratchet and Clank. What do you reckon about that? That makes me feel better because I think I would have it maybe. I think I feel better of it over Ratchet and Clank, but not above the Forgotten City. So as this is now, 6 to 9 is Undertale 6, Forgotten City 7, Warcraft 2 8, Ratchet and Clank 9.
Yeah, and then Halo Infinite in 10.
Yeah.
I think the only thing I would change about that is I'd swap Forgotten City and Warcraft 2, but I'm fine with it as it is.
Yeah, I just feel like
the more I look back on Forgotten City, I start to think like it was quite silly. Like the fact that bloke was always standing there every time I got out of the portal was like... Actually,
Yeah, but
quite stupid.
imagine he wasn't, and you
I
had to go
know,
and do
but
all
they
that
could have
busy
done something
work.
else. They could have done something
Like,
else.
it's a video game. Like, I
Yeah.
feel like it's got great writing, but I don't think it ever stops acknowledging that it is a video game. And don't forget, the Forgotten City had a bunch of humor as well. Like, it
Yeah, it
didn't
was
take itself
funny.
too
Yeah.
seriously. So that's why. And I just think that, like, Warcraft 2, like, I have a strong appreciation for. If it had good AI, I'd have just outright enjoyed it, but there was just enough frustrations with the amount of units you could have, how limited like the camera zoom in was, and some of like the design flaws with it was just enough that it like overshadowed the fun at points. And like every time I'd load up a level, and like even though it was quite interesting, I'd be like, oh, I can't build up a town here, and I have to just struggle moving around the AI. I'd be like, oh no, I don't know how this is gonna go.
But that's like such a big part of it, though. Like, you know, like that's what they're asking you to do. That's the game. Is the strategy is the game. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you could do the same thing every
building
time,
up my town more than fighting.
You want to play SimCity, really? That's
basically, but with like orcs and like wizards and stuff.
You wanted to play Wolfcraft, which is your version, which is just built.
I want to play Warcraft.
You set up a custom map, and you don't put any enemies on it.
Tell you what, maybe let's. Are you happy to leave it as it is?
Yeah.
But then maybe as we say, as you just saw with the quick switch around of the Forgotten City and Ratchet and Clank. Oh God, Ratchet and Clank's had a bad deal here. It's just dropped two spaces.
Yeah, that's another one that on reflection, I don't have a lot of great memories. Like, it kind of came and went, you know, and I think even when we recorded, I said that, like, there's something about it that just kind of washes over you because it's so safe, you know.
It's so fun in the moment, but then it doesn't leave a lasting memory.
Yeah.
And so
I feel
think
like, the games that are kind of moving their way up the list or higher up the list, they all have like heart. Do you know what I mean? Like they all have something about them that's like, you know, you kind of rooting
and I think
for
that's
it.
why like people might look at games like Ooblets and Mr. Driller and be like, God, they are up high, but they have so much heart and like so much passion behind them and personality that's what's really kind of keeping them up there. Whereas Ratchet and Clank is probably the most polished game on the list, probably the most accessible, you know, but you know it probably just doesn't have I think maybe just the size of the team and just how shiny and new it kind of feels. It probably doesn't have as much heart.
Yeah, it's not as charming.
Speaking
of Ooblets, though, it's got a full release now, isn't it?
Oh, is it 1.0? I saw they added like you can have your own shop in the game.
No, they Switch Nintendo Direct the other day. They said, Ooblets is coming out. Coming to Switch.
Yeah, I did see it's coming out on Switch. Have you gone back to it yet?
No, but it's still installed, and I keep looking at it like today's the day. But then I'm like, I've got to play Warcraft 2.
Yeah, I guess we got to play so many other games. But here's out on the list. Speaking of other games, do you want to kind of chat about what games are coming up in the future?
So we have Last of Us. This next one, which I've just installed, so I'm looking forward to that. And then we have Zero Ranger, Driver San Francisco, and then
the next one we're just 100%. We have a guest that's definitely coming on, but we're working out just to make sure we have a date to record. So we'll announce that in the future. But we have another special guest coming up after that, which I know a lot of you will be very excited to see on the show.
Also, Last of Us, we've got a guest. So next time we'll be three of us. Yeah.
So we have another special guest, friend of the show, appearing next week. Feel free to guess. You haven't got much to go on, so good luck. You probably won't get it right. Anything else you want to mention about what's coming up on the bonus points?
Yeah, same as always. Best of threes every other Friday. The next one is a very good one. I haven't actually seen it, but I've obviously recorded it. So I know it was fun to record. Do Your Worst seems to be coming up quite often, so we got that. And tier list, if we can think of anything. Maybe we can do something Warcraft related. Super niche.
Same favourite voice lines that they say. If you do have any recommendations for tier lists that you would like us to do, obviously it's it needs to be things that Ollie and I both know a bit about or can learn about quickly. Feel free to leave them in the comments because we spent a few times brainstorming. We had quite a few decent ideas, but no great really, ideas. I don't think
really
so.
Hits.
Yeah, so feel free to leave any down below. But apart from that, that's the end of this podcast. Thank you for listening to it to its conclusion. There'll be a new one out in 2 weeks from when this was uploaded. But apart from that, cheers for watching, and we'll see you later. Bye.
Cheers. Bye.